Now we'd like to bring in Manal Omar. She's the acting vice president for the Middle East and Africa Center at the United States Institute of Peace. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us more about the economic and the political effect of Davutoglu's stand down.
I think the biggest political effect is really a question in terms of which direction Turkey is moving. There's a fear, particularly from Western allies, that this move towards a presidential system will mean more consolidation of power for Erdogan, and a fear that some of the agreements that have already been negotiated with the EU, particularly in related to migration, will be fragile, and also a fear that Turkey is moving more and more towards isolation, which is something that the Prime Minister of Germany has really flagged as a warning for the rest of Europe.
But Manal, Turkey is set to get a big economic boost due to this whole refugee crisis from the EU. How do you factor that in and weigh it?
Well, I wouldn't phrase it as an economic boost from the EU. I mean, the refugee crisis is such a strain on Turkish's resources that any support from the EU or from the West is really about alleviating that crisis. Turkey has, in the past 10 years, really done well for itself economically. It's one of the few countries that actually has held a middle class. At the same time, it's one of the only, I think, the only country in Europe that has, doubled its GDP in the last 10 years and really been able to improve economically. With the refugee crisis, any support that's coming from the EU West really goes directly to that type of support, not necessarily to boosting Turkey's economy.
The Lira has had its worst fall in 14 months, according to our reporter there. How is this affecting the economy in the short term?
So I just got off the phone with some of the advisors to the president asking that exact question, and there's a lot of confidence that there will be a bounce back in terms of the Lira, and that this is a short-term, very quick transition towards stronger growth down the line. People within Turkey didn't seem to be very surprised about the resignation of the prime minister. In fact, a lot of the talk had been, will he even last a year? And so there is a certain amount of preparation for the type of ramifications. I think the stronger concern would fall politically versus economically.
And how concerned are you about reports that Erdogan will put more pressure on the central bank for rate cuts?
I think that there's going to be a lot of discussion and advisory around that. I think that one of the things that has benefited in terms of some of Erdogan's policies, hearing from people, particularly from rural areas, not necessarily the urban, is that the rate cuts and the changes have actually empowered them and improved infrastructure. Now, what that means long-term, and particularly in terms of foreign investment, I think that will still be a big challenge.
Manal, moving on to the tensions between Turkey and Russia affecting relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia. What do you see in the coming weeks with this?
I think it's very difficult to comment. Most of my expertise is primarily on the Middle East. I would be hesitant to comment on the effect on the Caucasus.
All right. Well, Manal Omar, so great to see you. Thank you so much joining us live from Miami.